Rachelle, how are you?
I am fabulous.
I have to tell you, I'm like obsessed with this bathtub idea.
I truly think that everybody should have an old vintage clawfoot bathtub in their studio or in their workspace, or even, I don't know, right in the middle of your living room, maybe. Grab some pillows and, say, come on in and have a sit and a read, or, grab a glass of wine and just really enjoy your time, because there's so many things around us in our spaces that inspire us.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you are changing it up, you're not sitting on a sofa, you're in this tub, and it's a novelty.
Yeah.
But those novelties actually make us more playful, jovial, just so much fun.
Right.
So, it was always such a game to run to that bathtub and be the first one in.
Right.
So, that was very inspiring and magical. Are you getting some back sound?
You're great. You're absolutely great. So, but talk to me about your teacher though. Was she particularly special, this writing teacher?
So she wasn't actually our fourth grade teacher. We got kind of farmed out into this journaling class, and I don't even know what kind of teacher she was. I'm in fourth grade. All I know is that I got to go to her room, which was this attic library, with a small group. It was like a small group pullout, which, remember, it was a small school anyways. Maybe 22 in a class, 20 in the entire grade level.
Right.
And so there were, maybe 8 of us at a time in this room, and she would encourage us to write whatever we felt. And that was really this kind of continuation of writing as a child. When you're passionate, when you pull up a pen or a crayon or whatever, you just start writing because you just have to get those emotions out, those expressions, whether they're words or pictures. And she continued that, even though we were at the age where we were test taking and writing essays and all of that. This was truly, it was a very forward thinking school. And this was truly about getting in touch with our emotions and staying in touch with those emotions. And, when I look at my journey, even starting at that time at that school, I attribute so much of who I am to that school. And it was the Ellis School in Pittsburgh, by the way. It's still there, and it's still an all-girls private school. And so shout out to Ellis. But when I started teaching, that really laid a foundation for my teaching premise. Right. And whether I was teaching in schools, in elementary school, middle school, high school, I've taught everything, preschool all the way through college and beyond. But that I was more of a mentor to my students. My job was about obviously teaching, but it was teaching through a way that there was a connection with each student connected to what they were learning. Yeah. And I think that stemmed from that teacher and from that experience. Yeah.
Wow. The teacher and the bathtub. That's
right. The teacher and the bathtub.
That's like a new children's book, by the way. Just saying.
It is. Yeah. Definitely. I'll put that on my list.
The book in the bathtub. Maybe the book in the bathtub. I don't know.
It's so awesome. Whatever. Yeah. It's just this whole imagery. I can see the illustrations in the text now.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. It's funny how you get fixated on one thing. So I know you taught school. I know you taught I know you taught special ed. You taught writing in school at many different grade levels. But talk to us about sort of your creative journey outside of the classroom. Sort of what how did that work? How did that
It was a fire. It was truly a fire that just kept burning. And I started with a spark when I was really little. Obviously, that Carnegie Museum of Pittsburgh class started, and I took classes there for many years. That was just the beginning.
Right.
But and then of course the fire was really kind of fueled with Ellis and that school, and then into college and graduate school. And my family was a huge support, my mom especially. And I was in college and I started selling my work, and I got married. We had one semester left of college to go, and I got married, and that was kind of a way. Even I was managing a clothing store. I was actually the visual merchandiser there, so that was very creative in itself, managing the store. Yeah. But selling my work, and that was kind of my first step into entrepreneurship.
What kind of work were you selling?
So that work was, oh gosh, it was almost folk artsy. You know, it was back in 1989. I can't even remember when I was married, 1989. And my mother-in-law was an artist. She was a portrait artist, extremely realism. I mean, that was her style, and taught that, produced that, was phenomenal. And my style was completely opposite.
Well, wasn't that influenced by your family, right?
I think it was more influenced by Ellis, actually, by the school.
Oh, really?
My family did very much support me, and they provided so many experiences. I got to go to Italy as a young child or a middle school child. I got, trips to New York, the museum, all of that, DC. So yes, very much supported by my family. Yeah. But I think that my style is completely different than anybody in my family. I am the bohemian, free thinking, free flowing. Let's all get in touch with our feelings. Let it express through our art and our writing.
Okay.
Nobody in my family's like that.
Okay. No, mine either.
No. So you know how that is. Yeah, but it was this fire, and I was so fortunate because my husband has always fueled that fire also, and has always given me this freedom, even, if I was teaching, it was an extra time that I devoted, or, I ended up homeschooling. We had our third child in 2000, and I ended up leaving teaching and dedicated to homeschooling our three at that time. We have four. And I started my first true business, even though in college I was doing the folk artsy thing. In graduate school, I was designing nurseries. I was doing nursery design, sewing and stitching and art for the wall, and just
amazing,
having a blast with that. And that was one way I got through graduate school. But then when I left teaching and was on my own was when my major shift in entrepreneurship changed, and I became a professional scrapbooker.
I love this story.
Even then, the term was kind of like, is that a real thing? What is that?
It is now. It's a thing.
It is now. Maybe I coined the phrase. I don't know.
I love it.
It just, I had been scrapbooking for years. I had taught art journaling at that point, probably for 10 years by then.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I've taught art journaling for about 30 years. I started even before I had my first child, who was 28. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason, that got started because I had this very forward-thinking administrator. I taught at Spartanburg Day School.
Yeah.
And I had a very forward-thinking administrator, and she invited me to facilitate a teachers group, a teachers community, where I was facilitating them into creating their personal portfolios, not their professional ones, their personal ones. She was
What's the difference?
Well, personal versus professional. Professional is all about, what you're doing in your career, your accolades, all that kind of stuff. Personal is about your life, who you are, coming to terms with being that person. And this person, Peggy Karpick, who is one of my all-time pivotal people in my life, and she's still my life today, and she was so inspiring, and she asked me to facilitate this group to lead them through basically finding themselves, because she knew that them being in touch with who they are was going to make them a better person in the classroom. It was going to make them a better part of this community that we are, all these teachers. We did a lot of team building and things like that. And it was an amazing opportunity, but I started art journaling with them. That was a big part of their portfolios. And, portfolios are a big part of actually what I've done professionally and personally. And, I always try to clarify that portfolios are a vessel. They're a container that hold your artifacts, your work. And so my job has always been to mentor and lead people of all ages, because I did portfolio assessment with my students too, and my own children through homeschooling for 21 years. but my job was always to mentor all of these people to create their artifacts that were personal to them, their writings, their illustrations, their musings, whatever they may be. That's all art journaling. That is all that connection between art and words, and that started that many years ago. And scrapbooking was just an extension of that.
Yes, let's talk about that. How did it come about?
Professional scrapbooking. How did that come about? So I left teaching when I was about to have my third child. Of course, I still needed to make an income. Mm-hmm. And I happened to talk to one of our parents at the school. I taught at Lake Highland Prep in Orlando, and talked to one of the parents. She kind of knew what I was doing on the side. And she's like, I want you to do that for me. And then her friend said, I want you to do that for me. And what ended up happening is I built this business by scrapbooking for people, and I would go into their homes. This was the key.
Yeah.
I would go into their homes so I could talk with them in their environment. I could see their style. And that's what I wanted to portray in their books with their pictures, because they were not my books.
No, right?
Right?
Yeah. That blows my mind, because it wasn't your style that you were reflecting. It was them and their home and their family.
Right. And it taught me so much. It's so interesting, because it taught me so much about actually who I was too, in the realm of this whole industry that was about preserving your memories.
Yeah.
I was preserving somebody else's memories, and within that I was becoming part of their story. Yeah. And it was just this goosebump type, experience that I was so honored to be part of. Now here I'm talking to all these people and creating their books. I mean, they're giving me hundreds of pictures at a time, and I'm doing, I think I did like 10 books for somebody at one point. And I told them, though, I will not do your writing. I will coach you. I will mentor you.
Interesting. Because everyone struggles with that, right?
Yeah. People struggle with that, and they want it to be a published book. They want something that is, of course, coffee table appropriate, but also this, kind of commercial style book that anybody would want to pick up and be attracted to. And I'm like, that's not what I do.
Yeah,
what I do is to portray how you live, what you experienced, all of that. And so in your writing, I will help you to formulate the sentences, find the words that express what we don't see in the picture. That is the other key. You need to write what you don't see in the picture. It's the backstory. It's the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So the picture and writing come together. Yeah.
So I guess sorry, I just but I think that's really key, though, is having them write the story, even if you're coaching them through and helping them, which I'm sure you were, and because that's what you do. But I just think I'm sure that was a fascinating experience and really powerful for them.
I feel like it was, and I really encouraged them. They had to write in their own handwriting, which is such a representation of their personality, of who they are, and it helps with their creative thinking, and it really helped them to let the stories flow. And then they would write on other pieces of paper, and I would just mount them in with the design, but it was their writing. And I had this one particular experience with this new bride. Actually, she's mom, and she was in Tampa. So my range of business kind of went from coast to coast in Florida. And I started, she had just had a baby, but she wanted me to do her wedding album. Okay. And I spent many nights with her many days, actually going over some different points of how her book was going to be. And, this was a very special thing for her. Sure. And I ended up having to meet her one evening, and her husband was home.
Right.
And I found myself in this middle of this kind of altercation about the money that was being spent on the service I was providing. So of course, I'm a young mom at that time too, and I'm kind of out of my comfort zone. But I witnessed something that was also very influential in the rest of my journey, is that she was crying. This woman was really overwhelmed, brand new baby, had really recently gotten married, and there was just a whole lot of changes in her life. And as they're going back and forth, and I'm just sitting there not knowing what to do, all my stuff is spread out, the pictures are out, everything's out. And, she's crying, and she just all of a sudden said, "This is so important to me." She said, I haven't even been able to shower in days. I can smell myself. And to me, that phrase just kind of meant so much, because here I am, mom of 3 little ones,
Yeah.
And I understand those days when you can't even get a drink of water because you are so overwhelmed. And that phrase stopped her husband.
Yeah.
And her crying and all of that. And he's just said, "I didn't realize this meant so much to you. I was looking at this as a luxury item for you. We have this baby, we're under so much pressure. You're not working right now, all this kind of stuff."
Yeah.
But I didn't realize. And she said, "I need to hold on to this time of you and me while I am starting this journey with 3 of us. I need to hold on to this time of the 2 of us." And it was, I have goosebumps.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. And it was 20 years ago. And so from then, what I did with her was I took her in on her own. I started coaching her. And I can hear my echo. I don't know if you can, but I can hear my echo.
No, we can't. Sorry. Okay. Well, no, I mean.
But I started kind of inspired her to pick up journaling, and coached her through some of these things that she was working through. And she ended up having that as a regular practice. And she, had told me, months later that it was really helping her. Yeah. Because she was able to own these feelings and understand that even though the baby books were showing all these wonderful milestones and all this great, happy, sunshiny stuff, it was the nitty-gritty that's
not real life.
Yeah, it was life.
Yeah.
And she didn't know it was okay to have those feelings.
Oh, that is really powerful.
Yeah, it was moving. It was moving.
I'm sure you had lots of situations like that. Wow.
So many stories.
But how do we go from the scrapbooks to then move into a farm, homeschooling your kids, and then dying on paper?
Exactly. All of that's actually so connected. I know.
They're both books.
It's so crazy, isn't it? So we left Florida. We happened to, I grew up with horses, and we had our children just loved horses. We had our 4th child by then, and we bought a horse for my daughter, and it was being boarded. And we decided that we wanted to full in live the experience. That's kind of our life. And literally
sounds like it.
Yeah. In 32 years of marriage, we've moved 19 or 20 times so that we could live full into the experience. I have a very patient husband, and I have a short attention span, and he has indulged me for all these years.
He's a keeper.
Yeah, we just felt like we wanted the experience of owning this horse on our own property. So of course we had to buy more horses. And so we decided that we would move back up to the Carolinas. My husband grew up in South Carolina. I went to college and graduate school in South Carolina, and that I met him after he graduated college, and I was still in college. So we moved back up. We found acreage in North Carolina that was real close to the state line, and we had 3 horses pulled up into this farmhouse, and we were homeschooling. We had already been homeschooling by then, but we went ahead and continued homeschooling.
Sure.
What better way to learn about life and experiential, authentic, learning than being on a farm, climbing trees, digging holes. We had magical fairy woods, and my children learned how to do math by building an arena for the horses to train in, and putting up fences, and learned the real reason of the phrase, "the grass is always greener on the other side," as our horses quite often escaped to other grass. We just kind of fell into this world of being with nature, and homeschooling was this way. We unschooled. which means very different to a lot of different people. But to us, it was about each of our children finding their passions and learning the basic skills through these passions. But it was always higher level thinking skills that resulted. They were always being coached in that and learning that. And that just kind of, the farm was this great foundation for that. And then
magical.
we started this unschooling group called Barefoot Unschoolers, and one of the fabulous moms handed me some raw wool.
Right.
I'm from Pittsburgh. I don't even know about raw wool. I don't know about wool except if it's in a sweater or in a pair of socks, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, what do I do with that? It was matted, had all kind of, earth matter and whatever. And she kind of coached me through it. And so I wanted to dye it. We had these great persimmons on the farm, and I wanted to dye this wool. And so we had made ink out of the persimmons. We had done other things, so I was just sure it was going to work. So I put the wool and the persimmons in a pot. That's what you do to dye stuff, right? And I start dyeing it. It's there for hours. Now, meanwhile, you have to understand, I don't cook.
Well, how would you have time?
Yeah. Well, I have no interest. I learned that when I first got married, if I burned everything, nobody would ever ask me to cook. So when I do make something that's not burned, they're all, ecstatic. But so I have this wool and these persimmons in a pot. They're not doing anything. I run to my studio. I just happen to have a piece of linen paper and a rock on my studio table for whatever reason. My daughter collected rocks, so it was probably perched there from her. And I thought, well, if I somehow force the wool and the persimmons to touch, it's going to die, right?
Okay.
Maybe.
Seems
so
good.
I put the paper on, gathered up, put the paper on, put a rock on top, and left it there for about a couple hours. Pulled it out. No, that wool was still that natural color. Nothing happened. When I looked at the paper, there was a stain from the persimmons. Wow. And I had leaves in there, and there was the beginning of stains. Now, it's not nearly what I do today, but it was a promise. It was a promise.
Little,
Yes, little trigger was like, ooh, we need to go down this road. And so I did. I started playing around with it. I was foraging things off of our land, and then I got sidetracked.
No way, really?
Yes, I opened a retail store because why not?
Why not?
It was the time. It was a retail art studio named Art Blooms because I believe everybody blooms through art. Yeah. And it was in a tiny little town in North Carolina called Boiling Springs, just right outside of Shelby. And it was phenomenal. It was my home that I never knew I was searching for.
Really?
And in it, we sat 90, and in it, I know it was huge. We had field trips and professional development and all these kinds of events, but it was also a place where people could walk in the door, sit down, and do art whenever they wanted to. We were this venue for escape. We were this venue for artistic opportunity. We splatter painted the floors so that people could come in and make a mess and spill paint and not worry that they were messing up this.
That's a great idea.
It was just this place for them to release. And we started out with Paint Your Own Pottery because that was kind of the end that everybody knew. That was my thing. My thing was clay, throwing on the wheel, hand building, all of that. And so
you're still doing pottery all this time?
I'm still doing pottery all this time. In fact, the woman that gave me the wool was she had the first kiln that I ever bought on my own. I had always used outside kilns from somewhere. Right. But she had an old kiln, and we bought that. My husband built a kiln cabin on our farm property, and that was pottery. My kids grew up with clay. I mean, from high chair times, they were creating pieces out of clay. They were on the wheel really early. Yeah. They even we had a little river stream that ran through the back of our property. They even got dirt and clay from there at one point and tried to see if they could mold anything. And We did put it in the kiln. We actually put it in our bonfire and fired up some pieces, and they were kind of neat. It was just a learning experience. But anyway,
so we start off with, but we go from painting your own pottery to seating 90. See, I'm not even sure you can hear yourself. Like,
so here's the key. If anybody hasn't noticed yet, the key is
the theme is
you jump. Yes. So Peggy Karpik, my fabulous administrator from Spartanburg Day School, once told me, she's like, you are sewing your parachute on the way down. And that is me. always. So, and that's what we did. We opened this studio. I somehow convinced my husband that all of our savings should go into this studio, and had, some help from a secret source. And we did. We opened. And 6 months after we opened with Paint Your Own Pottery, I put clay in. I couldn't wait any longer. I put wheels in. We started doing clay classes. I do stoneware pottery still to this day, but I wanted people to experience making things that they could use. Earthenware pottery from Paint Your Own Pottery, obviously it's great and it's beautiful and you're supposed to be able to use it, but it doesn't last long. So I really wanted people to be able to use heirloom, make heirloom pieces, drink out of them, eat out of them. Stoneware is the way to do that. And then we added in glass fusing, and then we added in polymer clay, and then it went to mixed media, and then it went to trash art, which is like an eco art.
Yeah.
But the entire time,
right?
I'm sorry?
And art journaling, right?
And the entire time art journaling was a staple. From day one, art journaling classes on Monday nights were a staple. And
why Mondays?
So Monday, I started that as a fluke that in the beginning, when I was facilitating these teachers. And over the years, it became this thing that people would just look forward to so much. That Sunday night when you are, you're just reliving the wonders of the weekend and you're thinking, the routine starts again tomorrow morning. I've got to go to work. I've got to get the kids ready for school. I've got to do all of those things. Yeah. Monday night art journaling was always this glimmer, this spark of the day that people could look forward to. And they would tell me, that, they would come into class and they would say, last night the kids were crying and I'm making all these lunches and da-da-da-da. And the only thing that got me through was knowing that I was going to be here the next night, that I was going to be able to relax and release and enjoy and be me, That's what art journaling is all about. So
can we just pause there because before we get into the bookmaking and Disney, but I just think art journaling right now is seeing a real sort of revival, but you've been doing it for 30 years. Yeah. So and everyone's got, everyone's got their own definition, apparently. Yeah. Everyone's got their own definition, which is fine. But I'm just curious to know, what's your definition of art journaling? What does it mean to you and the people you do it with and the people that you teach? Because you do teach still.
Yeah, art journaling is one of those, it seems like it's a catch-all phrase now. And it's kind of one of my pet peeves because I feel like there should be other terms to really define what this medium is, because it is a medium all in itself. And everybody has their own way, and that's true. And I am not knocking anybody's way, because it has to be true to them. Exactly. Right. So for me, art journaling is truly this connection between art and words. They both go together to be our expression. So when I teach art journaling, my idea is that I am guiding them through an art experience that is the precursor to their writing experience. So not everybody wants to write. Nope. Not everybody feels comfortable about writing. Of course, I encourage and I inspire, and I even, they might do quotes, they might do lyrics, they might do psalms, and they might do captions, but some people write volumes. Yep. And it doesn't matter what you choose to do. Mm-hmm. What it is about releasing and getting over the power of the white, which is so stifling to so many people. Yep. And in art journaling, we start that with marks on a page, through painting, through now in the olden days, I used to do a lot of mixed media with art journaling.
Sure.
Now that we are online, I'm really focusing in on watercolor and gouache.
Yeah.
And I have had people in my art journaling classes for years in person. And I have seen such a growth in them artistically by looking at this with water media and not writing magazine collages or anything like that. They truly have to rely on pouring out whatever is coming out of their paintbrush.
Right.
And it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. And the other thing that I've learned, and yes, COVID has been horrible and awful to everybody. I've seen some shining light, and one is through art journaling, because art journaling is so personal. And so it's coming from the inside of you. You can make it as deep as you want to. It doesn't have to be deep at all. You can do the art and be done, and that's phenomenal. Yeah. But what has happened through doing this online, we do it live. I'm going to do a little plug. We do it live every week, Monday and Tuesday nights, and that means it's flexible. You can come either night, and we also do a recording. But what I found through that is that people are not able to look across the table and see what somebody else is doing.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Yes, and the growth is phenomenal.
Because you're on Zoom, you're not in a room together.
Exactly.
So there's no comparison.
No. And even though I am guiding this art, and some people follow me step by step, and some people go off in their own world, which I encourage everybody to do.
Of course.
And as I'm guiding, I always give suggestions or inspiration about how they can go into their own little world. Yeah. And I start to know my students, and I will kind of put in a little plug. I won't use their names, but I'll say, this would be a great way for you to put in maybe this camper idea, because you're referencing all of these travels that you've done, right. And I have campers, multiple campers in my group.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so the way I have always taught all these decades is by putting in these little plugs that I know people are going to take, that it's specifically to them.
Yeah.
And just by guiding this, even through Zoom, they feel like these lessons are specifically targeted to them for them to get their growth. It's just amazing. I hear from everybody, and everybody's coming from different aspects, but yet they feel that same thing.
That's so interesting.
And I was afraid to do it on Zoom. I truly was.
Yeah.
I was afraid that I would not be able to pick up the sensory inspiration that I need from each student for teaching. Yeah. I've taught in person. I've taught at Polk Museum of Art. I have taught workshops at Epcot because I'm an invited artist to Disney. I have taught in galleries. I've taught in my own little studio. And the one thing that has always been consistent was that I could read the audience. I could read my students.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. And I was afraid I couldn't do that through Zoom. And let me tell you, facial expressions.
Yeah.
Thank you for facial expressions. It's powerful. It is powerful. But I teach art journaling from the premise, besides it being a connection of art and words, I'm an educator. And one of the things that I've always loved about education is enrichment. So my art journaling classes come from a basis of enrichment. We do cultural studies. We do, we look at biographies. Right now in August, we are studying contemporary female artists. So we've been inspired by Kara Walker and Emily May Smith and Maya Hayek, and just each month it's a different theme. Yeah. But my goal is always to enrich. I mean, we did street art from Peru. Fun. We did
street art from Peru.
Yes, we did. We did music, classical music from Austria.
Oh, that's cool.
We did, and besides all of that, I go into the different cultural aspects, and we were talking about Mozart, but we were talking about where was Mozart walking you know, what were in the gardens, and always comes back to flowers for me somehow.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
talking of flowers and leaves, you know, we cannot not talk about your books because you know most people listening here are all about books. So we've got the retail store, but at the same time, we have the persimmon and the wall that's not going to die, and we have the dyeing, and then you know you go down this whole other rabbit hole, which is the plant and you know flower and natural dyes and eco printing. So
how did they merge?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so at Art Blooms, my shop was in a downtown, right in the downtown kind of hub. We actually had two shops. We moved into a bigger location 2 years after we opened, and there was a florist down the street, and she became a friend. And I started telling her about what I was working on at home, which was this plant staining thing. And I was using materials, you know, from our ground, our yard and all that. Well, she's like, I throw out plants all the time. I throw out flowers that are just not to our quality. Yeah. So, and it's really sad because most florists in the industry actually have a lot of waste. So I made it my one woman mission to save her from all that waste. And my kids go over there twice a week and pick up our plant elements, flowers and leaves and all of that. Yeah. And I started keeping a diary of keeping an art journal.
Of course.
Of my method and my techniques. And I really did that. So I did that for many years, actually. And when we sold or when we closed, we just kind of closed up and came back to Florida in January of 2014. I had enough of the cold.
Right. The cold.
Yeah. And my back couldn't handle it. So I have a pretty bad back and the cold just was like going right through me. So again, happy husband to go ahead and indulge me. And we all picked up and moved within like 2 weeks, literally.
Of course.
So I had gotten to this point where I was actually teaching plant staining at Art Blooms. I had progressed to that point. And showing it in because I always have done art shows too, juried art shows and all that. And I was showing in my shows. Yeah. And I thought, oh, we'll just move. And this is what my job's going to be. I am just going to be a plant stained artist. Well, we moved to Florida and I get new resources from a florist that's actually right down the street from our house and some other resources, and nothing works. And I'm like, what? Well, it ends up because plants have so many variables. The soil they're grown in, the pH that is in there, what time of year they're harvested, all of that. So I had to restart my study with my sources that I had here in Central Florida.
Huh. Okay.
It was a huge learning experience. And so I continued to do shows. I continued to do all that kind of stuff and building this design. And Disney found me. And I was asked to present to the powers that be at Disney and brought in my plant staining. And they told me I would hear from them in about 6 weeks. The next day, my family and I went to Epcot actually for the day to celebrate. I think it was to celebrate my husband's birthday, and I got a call from them the next day. And I'm sitting in the middle of Disney. I'm going to have tears in my eyes. I'm standing in the middle, sitting in the middle on this bench, kind of in the middle of the front entrance of Disney, and I start crying, and my kids are like, "What is going on?" And I get up and I walk away so I can hear better. But they invited me to Flower and Garden Festival, which is one of their international flower garden festivals. In March, the next March. Yeah. So I had about 4 months to prepare. Anyways, that led to a 5-year relationship with Disney where I was an invited artist, and I did over 19 residencies with them. 1 year I spent over 250 days of the year on property. Oh, and I had my own shop, my own kind of pergola, whether it was on the promenade in Epcot or on the promenade at Animal Kingdom. I was put in Disney Springs. I was put in resorts. I mean, there was at one point we had 3 locations at the same time.
And this is you. This is all you making these.
Me. All of my art is original art. I mean, I started my first show with 3,300 pieces of original plant stained art. So for 4 months, for about 20 hours a day, I was plant staining, stitching, creating, all of that. Disney calls, you don't say no, and you don't leave any shelves bare. So you have to have enough backstock that when somebody buys something, there's something to put it in its place.
So what are you selling? What are you selling?
I'm selling journals. In fact,
why don't we flip down?
I have some right here. So this is just showing you how you actually can write in the journals. And I have these beautiful, I'm going to see if I can get a little closer so you can see these.
Okay,
there we go. We're zooming in. So these are all plant stained. And you can see I hand stitch everything. And when you open the pages, you see these plant stains that were just made by, these are pine needles and daisies and alstroemeria and roses. I mean, just these gorgeous stains that I was able to harvest into my art. This is a hydrangea leaf. And as you can see, you don't get the colors that you see when the flowers are out making our lives more beautiful. You get the stains, the essence from the oils, the tannins. These are rose leaves and hydrangea flowers. And I even use blueberries, and just amazing. So the beauty of all of this that was made happen by the magic of Disney is that I got to use plant materials from Disney.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
So at Epcot, Living for the Land grows plants from all over the world. And I happened to be able to go into Living with the Land and do some dumpster diving and got some magical materials that way. And then also they would be so kind and they clipped things for me, clipped plants for me. And most, obviously what they grow is edibles. And so I was using everything. I didn't have access to a lot of these things, any other place than them. Sure. But I was using plants that they were actually harvesting for food that Disney provided in their restaurants. So there was this whole kind of magical loop. Yeah. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So I really count my blessings with that.
Wow, that is and it sounds like an amazing. I mean, it sounds a lot of hard work, and I know now that you've retired from that, as it were, because I mean that's intense. That's an intense.
It was intense, and I basically took a little leave in 2019 for some health reasons, and then COVID struck, and so I've declined my last couple of invitations because of, I really don't want to be in that position and try to sell art, and it's just a tough thing. But anyways, it is magical, and I'm forever grateful, and
I'm sure.
I love it. Yeah, love it.
So what's next? Like what? I mean, honestly, I can't even imagine what it would like. Given everything that you want, all these.
What is next? Well, I have a whole wide world, right, with the internet. I actually resigned. I was a college professor teaching pottery for the last couple years, and I resigned that in May, and to focus really on this online wonderful world that we have. Art journaling was going really well, and I have other art classes. I've always had a website, but I never really taught online before. Wanted to since 2014, but never got there. But writing classes. So I kind of feel like I'm full circle.
Sounds like it.
I've brought pottery full circle from the age of 4 to teaching college pottery.
Right.
I've done art journaling. I mean, literally my students of every grade level always had an art journal. I've always taught with art journals. Didn't matter what topic it was. Right. Everybody from pre-K through college and adults have an art journal. So now it's all about writing. It is about everybody who's a bookmaker or has these journals that attract them when they go into a store. Everybody has these journals that are so pretty, and they're afraid of writing in them. So many people, that power of the white is so strong. So, my goal is, my mission now is to provide a writing experience. And I do it in 2 different ways. So I have some standalone classes that are full of whimsy and wonder. And I even have a treat for your members, which I'm going to get into in a minute.
Oh, I can't wait.
And then I have the Writing Lab program. And the Writing Lab program is really for committed students. They are students that want to grow with their writing.
Okay.
They want to build their writing skills, and it's not to get published. It's for their own growth, their own inner peace, their own release. Now, at the end of Writing Lab, I do have another part that's called Written and Illustrated by You. Yeah. And only graduates of Writing Lab can be in that, but that is going to take people to the point of self-publishing.
Okay.
But writing is just this expression. Remember when you were little and you picked up a crayon and you picked up a pen and you wrote, because you made these marks and they just meant that you were expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe you wrote where you weren't supposed to. I have children that resemble that. But it's that passion about writing. And both these standalone classes and this Writing Lab, it's all about rekindling that passion and giving yourself permission to release. And I'm guiding you to finding that muse and releasing her voice or his voice. And just,
but I think some people are so afraid of doing this. Some people are
so afraid, there's so many roadblocks they put in front of themselves, that they don't like their writing. That's the biggest one that I hear. And your writing is your thumbprint. It's your connection to yourself. And it also is this, it opens up that door to creativity and imaginative thinking and actually the flow. This is my biggest thing about handwriting, is that when you're writing, you have a flow, because when you're doing it on the computer, it's you see that you spell something wrong, so you stop and you go back and you spell it correctly, or you like, I don't like what that says. You go back and you change it. When
it's edited.
Yeah, you're editing right there. When you are writing by hand in a journal, you don't go back. There's a flow to it, and your brain just keeps flowing, and the stories and the the imagination comes out in words on a page, and it's just amazing. It's just an amazing process for the writer to go through this journey, but also to go back and read what they've written too.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's really powerful.
Oh, it's powerful. Yeah.
So having said that, I know that many people are afraid to jump into journaling. They don't know where to start. What should I write about? Like, do I just describe my day? Okay, so today we did this, this, and this. Like, what advice do you have for people who are really kind of stuck and don't know where to go from? Today I went to the grocery store and picked up some bread or made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch.
Exactly. We talked about that yesterday, actually. So, prompts are these things that you see out everywhere that you can get lists of prompts, and they're great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Prompts are fantastic. But people don't know what to do with a prompt. And so what I always encourage people to do is to have some kind of visual in mind, whether it's a picture or whether they're just kind of remembering their day or whatever. And don't write that, because you see it in that picture. I know, it's counterintuitive, right? Don't write that. You write what is behind the scenes of that. You write about what you felt during that. You write about the story that isn't being told in that visual. That's why I always say art journaling is this great way of connecting words and pictures, because the pictures, the art or photographs or whatever you're doing is that precursor or that trigger for the writing. It's scrapbooking. So many people wanted to caption their pictures just by narrating what's in the picture. But this is so-and-so fishing. Well, you can see that. But what you don't know is about, true story, is about my husband having to take me back home after he bought live bait and put it in the car, because this girl from Pittsburgh learned to fish on a football field and not anywhere close to live bait. And when it was in the back seat of the car making all this noise and jumping around, and I was screaming and crying, and he had to take me home. And that's the story that needs to go in the journal or in your scrapbook or on your book that you've made, not that you went fishing and had live bait.
Right. I get it.
Did I?
No, you didn't.
So I advise people, obviously you can take my writing classes, and I have a free one for the vintage.
Because I don't even know what this is either. So this is a surprise.
Yeah, this is a surprise
for us.
So I created this taster to my writing classes, but man, this is a heavy taste. I don't do anything small. Let me just tell you, it has to go big. This is a taster that is called Think Like a Book, because you're bookmakers, right? We're all bookmakers here.
Okay. Think like a book.
It is a kind of foray into personification, which is one of my favorite ways to teach writing. Okay. It is about giving human qualities to inanimate objects. Okay. And when you think like a book, you will be encouraged and inspired to be the book. Be the book.
Ooh,
and write from the book standpoint. You know, when you are feeling the spine and, you know, looking at the cover and flipping the pages and, you know, these are my happy pages. Where's my happy page? It's literally because this makes me happy when I turn the page. But how does it make my book feel? Does my book feel happy because this little insert's in there? Is it like a little treat? What might it be? Is my book getting tickled with the stitches coming down the spine?
Yeah.
No. I one of my examples in there even is there's multiple exercises. Let me tell you. There's 6 videos. They're heavy full and six full videos.
No half measures
for each one. There's exercises, and I have samples, and I even talk you through what my writing is. And there's a key card at the end of every writing class that I teach, writing course, writing class, writing module. There's always key cards, which is kind of like your little crib sheet, your little cheat sheet, so that you can keep this key card at your writing station. And when you are at a loss for what to write, it's not a prompt. It's a way. It's a way. It's the how. And that's what I'm trying to teach is the how. How do you approach writing? How do you get started? So this key card is the how, and you can collect all these key cards after taking these classes. This one for you guys, Think Like a Book, has a key card, so that when you're sitting there at your writing station or your comfy spot, I have a purple velvet sofa that is my comfy spot. You know, you can get this inspiration that, oh, wow, I want to write about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I just had, you know, that I had at 4th grade that was soggy. But, you know, how boring would that be? Maybe if I write it from the point of view of the soggy peanut butter and jelly, where's my mind going to take that one?
Right, yeah.
And you even incorporate things about yourself. Like, for example, my books, the pages don't curl in the humidity, but my hair does. And so I put that as one of the things in my writing is that, you know, the pages were curling from the humidity. And I know, because it's my reference, that I'm talking about my crazy, you know, right now it's like batted down with all these bobby pins, but usually I'm like, you stick your finger in the socket and it's huge. Yeah. You know, I know that I made those references, but they're coming from the point of view of the book. Does that?
Yeah, that makes oh my gosh. Like, well, we just need to finish right now so I can go do that, because that sounds that is extremely generous of you. I really appreciate it.
You'll get a link, and it will actually take you through a registration. It's all for free, like I said, but it puts you right into my website, and you can see how my classes flow. So there's a menu, and you can jump from, you know, but you don't have to wait to have it all delivered, you know, like 5 days in a row or anything like that. It's all right there. You can work through it. But this is kind of my plea for you, is I do encourage you to take your time with each segment. Just because it's all there, don't rush through it. Okay. You know, really engage and be present in that moment. And I give you inspiration to do that.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun. I can't even tell you. It's
my pleasure.
Been wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this for the community. Already people are posting in the chat that they've signed up for it already. So,
good.
And, folks in the different Facebook groups, everything, or on my page, please, or just email Rachelle and just give us feedback, how you like it, what you're thinking. You will see me in the writing class. I just signed up for writing class with Rachelle. And
I think you're taking, just pick up your pen and write. That's the first, that's the first class coming up in August. Yep, that's awesome.
I'm signed up and ready to go. I think that this is a great next step for many of us who make books, is to be able to actually use them and just put our own words. We put our love and our ideas into creating the book, but then the next step to putting our words and our thoughts, I think it's going to be really mind-blowing for a lot of people. So
and it's so true to my heart, and I've lived it for 3 decades now. I hate to say that, because it's aging me, but or even more than that, honestly. And I wish for your community to, I know you guys are making phenomenal books. And so I can't wait for you to use them and feel them and just engage with this beauty that you've made.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, you have a wonderful day.
And thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you in the writing lab.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Take care, Rochelle.
Bye. You too. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye-bye.